Hi, a very good afternoon to all our viewers. We have a very, very special session this afternoon coming up with Anuradha Kumari, who is the global FP&A head for PayU. PayU, of course, as an organization, is a fintech leader across India, Eastern Europe, the Latin American markets, and really requires no introduction. So I guess without much ado, I'm going to first introduce Anuradha. She has several years of experience prior to joining PayU. She was last with Goldman Sachs, and Goldman Sachs, as all of us and all our viewers would be familiar with, are market leaders when it comes to investment banking. So she was a part of the investment banking team, which for those of you who are in finance, hi Anuradha, great to see you, needs absolutely no introduction. But at some point in time with the fintech and the story of fintech opening up, I suppose it must have occurred to Anuradha that she wanted to be a part of the fintech story. So where else to join but as chief of staff to the CEO of PayU. That was the initial role that Anuradha took up, and obviously given that very special role working directly for the CEO, she immersed herself in a number of projects that included, outside of finance, analytics and strategy. Having done that, she's now come into the nitty-gritties of her role, the fintech role in PayU. And, in her current role, she also acts as the co-chair of the Diversity Council, the Global Council of Diversity. Herself, she's a passionate sort of proponent of the diversity and inclusion agenda. And what brings us here today is this fabulous program that PayU has put together. It's called Reset, Reimagine, Return, where PayU is going to focus on attracting the returnee women back into their fold. This is not the first time that they're doing it, but they're doing it again with a new branding, with a new focus. So Anuradha, a warm welcome to our show.
Thanks a lot, Anirudh, and thanks a lot for the kind words. It's great to be partnering with your organization to make this program a success.
No, I'm sure, with our combined efforts, we will be able to attract the right talent. So I guess the first question before we actually get into the program is, what is your own inspiration of, and indeed that of PayU as well, of going into this kind of a program and, attracting returnee women? And where does this whole theme of reset, reimagine, and return come from? And what's your own personal inspiration?
No, I'm glad you asked that. So I think in terms of personal inspiration, it just feels like the right thing to do. There is no other option but doing it, right? I remember a few years back, I was reading this report by World Economic Forum, which basically said that it's going to take more than 100 years to bridge the gender gap. Now, that's a number that I am not comfortable with. I think all of us, even if we have an opportunity of making like an iota of change, 0.01% change, I think we should grab it with both hands. And that's where I started my journey in DNI. Like, my background is finance, and I'm doing DNI. It's a personal passion. Why, as PayU, we are very interested in this program is because twofold agenda basically. One is, if you look at the statistics around how many women in India are able to return back to the workforce after a kind of a career gap. It can be because of multiple reasons. It can be maternity, it can be family, anything, right? There are a lot of challenges, and that number is really low. Like I was reading somewhere that almost 18 to 30% of the women only come back to workforce after maternity. So it's very important that organizations like ourselves make that additional effort to help women come back to their careers. That's one. And second, from an employer perspective as well, it makes sense. It helps us to diverse our talent pool. We get different thoughts. We get new talent. So it also makes business sense for us to do it. And in general, like the more people, the more diverse thoughts, experiences that they bring, we can actually build an inclusive culture, right? And that's where PayU started this from.
Wonderful. So, I'm going to digress a bit. I caught this word inclusive culture and pay you.
Yeah.
So, obviously, that's important because, and, the study that you're referring to is in fact a very, very famous study. And you're absolutely right. Statistically, it is shown that if we have to completely obliterate the so-called gender gap, it was supposedly going to take about 100 years. So, of course, like you said, uh, no reason, and rather I would say absolute reason for every organization to sort of jump into this space and do what they can to bridge that gap. So, coming to this whole piece about inclusivity and inclusion, what specifically, are PayU's thoughts around that? And, obviously, when you're getting in returnee women, you and I are aware that they have their own challenges. So, what are plans that you have in order to address those concerns and issues?
So I'll take a step back. When thinking about we started first with thinking about diversity, and what we kind of realized is that diversity will have to be an outcome of your culture. And it's inclusive is a very commonly used word, but unless, and that's something which is not to benefit just any particular group or any particular community. It just benefits everybody within the organization. uh, that's one thing which is probably racial, sexual, everything neutral. So if you build, so that's our focus, that we build the inclusive culture. Now, how do we plan to help returnee women through this cultural aspect? I think there are a lot of initiatives that we have started at PayU, and we can deep dive on it. I'll give you a few examples. Especially for the returnee women, I think PayU allows for a flexible working setup, hybrid working model, which is like the new norm currently in the industry. We promote that. In addition, we also have programs for mentorship, and that mentorship is for everybody, where leadership team among PayU do one-on-one mentorship with candidates. We have a lot of learning materials available. We have in-house learning platform with more than 5,000 plus courses, and those courses are both technical and soft skills oriented. Sorry, I have a sore throat. And purely for this program, we also have fintech. We've started like a PayU fintech university. So if anyone who is not from the fintech world but wants to join the fintech industry, like I did a few years back, they can go through this university, go through the in-house build courses, and they can accelerate their learning. So these are some of the things that we are doing, focusing on mentorship, focusing on learning, and in general supporting women to go through this process. For instance, we have facilities to provide crash subsidies. Right now, it's probably not relevant because of the work from home setup, but once we go back to work, that starts to make a difference. We have a nursing room in the office, whoever needs it. So I think these are few things that we're doing to make that transition smooth.
Very nice. Thank you so much for sharing that. So moving forward, I'll focus on two other aspects. One is, typically if you're hiring, people out of universities, engineering colleges and MBA institutes, it is obviously so much easier, quote unquote, to sort of plug and play, right? Now, here it's a bit of yes and no, because obviously they do come in with some prior work experience. So, working in an office environment, or, the do's and don'ts, those things they do understand. And at the same time, in our own experience of, having worked with other clients and having worked with you all in the past, it is well understood and recognized that some of them have issues around confidence. Some of them have concerns around, oh, are we behind our peers? So some of these, motivational issues also creep in. Outside of that, we are aware that between men and women, and it's a well established fact that when it comes to multitasking, you can't beat a woman, right? Yeah, that's absolutely true. They're just gifted at it, probably because of a variety of things that they observe while they are growing up, or because of the kind of demands on their time and their roles both at home and office. So that happens. And yet at the same time, we are aware that almost 60% of women are actually homemakers. They're not there in the the so-called corporate space. So with this new program of reset, reimagine, and return, what are your plans that will sort of then help some of these women to an extent, to the extent possible, plug and play? I know you did mention a few things about the learning university, the creche facilities, and stuff like that. But outside of that, are there any other things that you all have thought of?
So I think we're keeping this program fairly flexible. That's why the kind of roles that we've opened up, it's fairly flexible. The seniority levels also that we are opening for this program ranges from roles that requires 2 to 3 years of experience to a much senior position, so that the candidates who apply can actually easily fit in. There are opportunities for everybody to kind of take on. That said, I think while designing the program, we were very mindful of the fact that everyone will be at a different stage in their life. Some would have probably taken a smaller gap and they can very easily come in and fit into a full-time role. So that's also an option that's open. But at the same time, there might be many who have taken a longer break and would probably require a little bit more training, and that's why we are going to work on like this 3 to 6 months programs where we help women gain exactly overcome the challenges that you mentioned, whether it is just personal confidence or any technical skill that they want. So that case by case catering to the demands of the individual, I think that is something which we hope to ensure that the candidates can actually overcome these challenges.
Wonderful. And so, what I hear you say, if I've heard you right, is that you will do everything to help them succeed. Meaning, whether if it's a functional skill that they need to acquire, if it's more behavioral or social, or maybe a technical skill, you and the PayU team, the PayU HR team, and the line managers will do what it takes to help them succeed. That's what I
Absolutely,
hear you say.
absolutely. Anything we will, like, it's our DNI statement also. We're gonna take any reasonable accommodation that we can do from our side. We're gonna try to make that happen.
Wonderful. So at this point of time, will you share for the benefit of our audience, because obviously there is an audience that we're wanting to sort of influence and hopefully get them to sort of meet up with you and and see where it goes. But some slight broader sharing of what kind of L&D culture you have, or L&D plans that you might have, learning and development plans that you might have for this target audience would help.
Absolutely, great question. So L&D is a big component for us, and I think we really take pride in the kind of content that we have put together. I'll give you some examples. For instance, data science and AI is the big thing right now in the market, right? And what we wanted to do was we wanted to enable our internal employees to grow that skill. So we started something called as nano degrees in data science, and it's from highly coveted organizations, and anyone can avail that. So that's also open for people coming from this returning program to avail that kind of facilities. That's just one example. And like I said, our we use the platform that we currently use has more than 5,000 plus learning initiatives, and all of us as PayU individuals, we have something called as an individual development program, which is basically to chalk out what I want to learn in that particular year, and I'm able to assign a certain goal to that percentage of my goal to that individual development program. And that's going to be over indexed for individuals who come through this program. And the resources that we have. And like I said, there's a one-on-one mentorship facilities as well to cater to any sort of a special need. And these mentors can go on to be basically your sponsors. We are a very fast growing organization. There is enough and more for everybody to work on. And I think it's a long journey. I have spent like 5 years already at PayU. And like you mentioned, I've done like multiple roles. And that is something that we kind of hope for everyone who joins us through the program as well.
That's wonderful. So the good news for us is that we are already getting a few questions coming in from the audience, which is heartening. And our past experience of having run some of these programs is, if I start ignoring those questions, then it doesn't sit well with the audience, and rightfully so. So with your permission, I'm going to sort of go a little off track and ask some of these questions because some of them are really pertinent. The first one comes your way. This is from a lady whose name, I hope I pronounce it right, is Anandini. So all names with A: Anirudh, Anuradha, Anandini. But that's just as an aside. The question here is, how do you bridge the knowledge gaps due to not being in touch with technology and work? So I think a very pertinent question, because you're a fintech company. So how would you go about it? So if you want me to repeat, how would PayU bridge the knowledge gaps because of not being in touch with technology and work?
No, that's a great question. And that's actually one of the first questions that everybody asks, that, we are a tech based company, and given the pace at which tech is transforming, how will it work? That's something that even we grappled with. But I think that's a challenge that we have taken up. And you'll actually see later when we publish the roles tomorrow. Uh, because of the nature of openings at PayU, most of our roles are tech and product roles. So it's very, like, we are very cognizant of the fact that we will have to kind of invest that time and resources for the technical skills as well. And like I clarified, right, we do focus a lot already on our existing employees' tech skills. And we will keep in mind that there would probably be a 3 to 6 month of learning journey that we will have to bake in, especially when it comes to a certain niche tech skill required for the job.
Okay.
I hope that answers.
No, I'm sure it does, and many a times what we have observed is if they find I mean, if they want to know into get into greater detail, then they will ask a follow-up question. One more question coming up our way, and this says, how exactly does the program plan for the career break women, meaning for the returnee women? How is the program planned? So, of course, parts of it you have explained,
Yeah.
which is that they are going to get learning modules. They can get mentorship. You have more than 5,000 different courses for them to choose from. But of course, rather than from me, they would want to hear from you.
Yeah, so I'll just club it with one more question that I see coming up, which is, will there be an interview process in the returning program? So just breaking it down from the very beginning, right? I think in a day or so, we will be publishing out all the roles that we have. And there will be a certain shortlisting process that will happen, and post and then after that, there'll obviously be an interview round. And we hope to conclude everything by the end of Feb. So there'll be a shortlisting, then a round of interviews, and it would depend on the role what would be the structure of those interviews. And yeah, by Feb end, we hope to conclude the program. Beyond that, once the individual joins the organization, now this is again, it'll be taken very case by case depending on what the role requires, and also like what is the need of the candidate. And then we will basically make a decision whether it's going to be like a full-time opportunity, or whether we are going to first go through that 3 to 6 month of the training program that I mentioned. But that will be a very case by case. And when you look at the job description, when you go into discussions with the interviewers, you will get that clarity. But we have both the flexibilities available, whether it is full time, or we, both the individual and the company wants to probably first see for the 3 to 6 months, where we are kind of giving you that training to be ready for the job, and then there is a final decision that's been made. But that's how we have planned to structure it.
Wonderful. Two questions now from my side. One is, given the fact that we as an organization have partnered with you in the past, so it's not the first time that you're
Yeah.
doing it. And yet, clearly, your entire leadership team was there together to sort of work with us on the branding, right? So, you're calling it, reset, reimagine, return. So obviously, I'm presuming this is obviously a better product and a more thought through product. So for the benefit of the audience that we want to attract, how is this program going to be better, a better version than what it was, and how is it going to be different, and why should people join you? Why should they join?
So I think we had done a version of this program in 2019. After that, we had that break of 2 years. I think it was just a COVID thing. We couldn't execute on it. How is it different? I think this time we have particularly focused a lot on L&D, ensuring that that first 6 months, the candidate, whoever comes in, we are able to kind of stay with them, support with them throughout that journey, to be able to it's kind of a shock coming back to the corporate world, right? There is a lot of, especially with women, there is so much to juggle between home and house. I think there is a big shock there. So ensure that they have somebody who can guide them through it. And I think we're going to partner with WIT also, who will be running the program for us, so that we have that little bit of a buddy culture available. I think that's number one. And the second thing that has changed everywhere is now there is a hybrid work model. In 2019, we were a full office model. Right now, every one of us is work from home. I think we went work from home in March 2020, and we've been working remote since then. So this hybrid working model also allows a lot of flexibility, and all the more for women, because like you mentioned, still more than 60% of the household chores, which is basically called as the unpaid work, is done by women. And I think, having the flexibility of being able to work from home even for a day or two, it just allows you to take care of so many things. So that has drastically changed, and we're hoping that we get even more applications because of that. And PayU is very heavily focused on ensuring that uh, there is everybody else gets like an equal playing field. We started that journey in 2019. So we started with DNI in 2019 formally. Before that, it was like an underlying principle for the HR policies, but actively we started focusing on it. And it's been 3 years since then. So we have also matured as an organization. We have matured in our DNI policies. We introduced things like Crash. We introduced so many other things. So I think these are a few things why I feel that the like, what are the differences between the previous version and this version?
All right. So the next question which I have is again from the audience, and you can also see it. It's someone who has an experience in data science. Yeah, a 1 year certification in data science. So the question is, would PayU be open to looking at such a candidate? Which then brings me, I'm going to club it with a more broader question. And I know you did mention that probably in a day or two, you all will actually announce the particular positions. But would it be fair to say that this might be across a number of functions? As
Yeah.
in, would you have openings across functions?
We do have openings across functions. Obviously, a majority of them are in product tech data roles, because that's where most of our openings are, because we're a tech company. But we have it across functions, support functions as well. Now, particularly answering that question, I think it's a more deeper question to say that if I do not have like a necessarily functional expertise in a certain thing, can I apply? And the answer to that is yes, because when you see the roles, right? Obviously, it's role dependent. You'll have roles which require say 2 to 3 years of experience. Probably that's where that could be a better fit. So it depends on the availability of the role, but we have tried that we open roles across the seniority ladder, so that like the individual who mentioned that she has a 1 year experience in data can probably, if there is a role that gets opened up, I'm not sure if it is, but if it gets opened up which requires a couple of years in slightly more entry level position, that could be a good target role to aim for. So I think it would really give us a day or so and we'll take a look at the roles, and I think that will be able to that then you'll be able to gauge whether there is a role which is relevant. But we are really open to taking in people from varied experiences and backgrounds.
Wonderful. So here is another question, and this I think is wanting to know a little more about the structure of the program. And I know you did mention that depending on the roles, there could be a variety of options open.
Yeah.
So, but having said which, this is a more of a structural question, which says that will it be sort of on the job training, or post completion of the program will pay you higher? Again, I know the answer can come in a variety of ways, but I guess you are best equipped to you know uh, answer it in the manner that you deem appropriate.
Yeah, so I think, like I said, it's going to be a mixed approach. Depending on also the profile of the candidate, we would love to, if we can give like a full-time opportunity and directly on the job. But we understand that that's probably not a very realistic aim. So that's why I think we are completely open to the fact that actually not just open to the fact, but we have structured the program in a way that allows for people to come and first train themselves, obviously with some relevant background, because if it's say a tech role, if you have an engineering background, that helps. We can help you get that additional learning which is required to update your skills. So our we know that we will be going down the route of the 3 to 6 months of learning program that I said, and that's going to be our focus area. That's how we have designed it. But if there is a candidate who probably fits in directly to a full-time role, we are kind of open to that as well. So there are these two parts that we're going to focus. uh, One is where learning on the job learning is also an option. The other is where you first go through the L&D program that we have designed for you for a couple of months, and then we make that decision.
Wonderful. I'm sort of going to go back slightly to what you answered last time, where you said, you might have roles that could be tech, could be in data science, or data specifically, and it could also be product, right? Now, product is a term that obviously people with a finance background and those who've sort of worked in banks and fintech companies are very familiar with. However, product could mean very, very different in an FMCG or
Yeah.
a consumer durable company. So, in the
Right.
context of a fintech company, it might help our audience if you just are able to elaborate a little bit on what do you exactly mean by a product role, and what
Okay.
kind of a background or what kind of an experience would make a person more suitable for a product role.
Okay. So PayU, we have opened roles across three different businesses that we have in India. One is what we call as the payments business, which is basically you see when you make any sort of a transaction on your e-commerce platforms or any other online purchases. The second is a business entity called Vimmo, which is basically building the tech infra behind the entire payments ecosystem. And the third is our credit business, which is more popularly known as the lazy pay, which you must have seen. When you make a purchase, you can get a small credit line, and there are other credit products on top of it with the lazy pay brand. So these are the three different businesses, and we have opened roles across the three businesses. Now, specifically talking about what product means for fintech. Okay, so product manager is a person which kind of which is a bridge between a business and technology teams. What this person needs to do is it needs to take inputs from the business folks to understand what is it that needs to be built. For instance, if I'm launching a new solution in credit, this person will take that objective or goal from the business team, and then has to translate it in terms that the tech team can utilize to develop that solution. So this is usually an individual who has good understanding of business, but at the same time understands the terminologies used in the tech world. That said, I think product is one of the most exciting roles from my personal perspective, because it just requires variety of skills. And usually you will see product managers come from different backgrounds, because that's the beauty of it. You'll have to you give inputs on the design of the product, on how the flows needs to work. So it's a very diverse kind of a profile. And it'll be good if anybody has some experience, relevant experience, in building products, not just in fintech companies but broader, like internet based companies where they have worked with this kind of solutions. I think yeah, that's what the product roles are all about.
Thank you so much. I'm sure, for all prospective viewers, that will help them understanding what exactly is a product role. I have another interesting question. And again, these kind of questions do come up. It's a fairly commonplace question to that extent. This one says that, will I have the scope to take up and work in new technology irrespective of my past experience? So could be a tech person, but may not exactly have experience in the tech vertical that you're looking for. So probably willing to sort of reskill herself. Would PayU be open to looking at such people?
Yeah, I think PayU will definitely be open for looking at such profiles, uh, given that the candidate shows, the aptitude for picking up that skill, whatever is the skill required. What have you kind of, there are a lot of courses that can be done. So I think that is what we're looking for. The practical training is something that can be acquired during the job, but I think I would leave that to the hiring manager to answer. But overall, as a policy, we'll be kind of open to such profiles as well.
Okay. Brace yourself. Couple of more questions coming up. This one, well, you know, it's interesting. A woman asking another woman, that also from such a senior role, but nonetheless saying, how, there have been, biases in the past, when it comes to returnee women. So, what are your thoughts around that? And, how would this program try and deal with that? And then I'll come to the next question.
Unfortunately, yes, biases do exist. Biases do exist everywhere. What we are trying to do is mitigate them. And I read a very interesting anecdote somewhere, where the first female Supreme Court judge of US said that the toughest thing was to get the second female. And the moment you get the second female, she felt that immense relief. And that's where then the concept came up that you need to achieve a certain critical mass. Till the time you achieve that certain critical mass, it's always a challenge to bring in that change. And that is what we are trying to achieve. We have so many women, not it's not just about returnee women, right? We have very strong maternity policies which allows our existing employees to come back after a maternity break, and flourish in their careers, just succeed in whatever they were doing and achieve their goals. So we are working towards it. I'll be completely detached to the realistic world if I say that the biases don't exist. They do, but I think what is important is what we're doing to mitigate it. One is, initiatives like this, which basically creates that sensitization among people on what the challenges are. There are a lot of stereotypes and myths around why people take breaks. Understanding the fact that it's not about just choice. Most of the times it's not a choice to take a break. And these kind of sensitization initiatives, ensuring that everyone in the organization goes through a certain training and learning to understand what DNI is, and not just from this perspective but overall. I think that's how we will be able to bring down the biases. And it's a long journey, it's not going to happen overnight. It's a gradual journey that we'll have to be on, and all I can say is we are committed to be on that journey. I think, yeah, that's how I can answer the question.
Thank you so much. Well, we have another question here from a lady whose name is Chandra Kumari. In a sense, I think you've addressed this, but but let me still nonetheless ask it. Here again, she's asking about cross-skill training. If she comes from one part of technology and wants to switch, what might be the expectation during an interview, or maybe what she means is the first interaction.
Uh, I I think I touched upon that question.
Yeah, yeah.
I think we need to see that intent. We need to see why do you want to get that skill, and secondly, what is it that you have done to basically, get as much as learning as possible. I can understand that the practical learning is only possible on the job, but behind the scenes, what is it that has happened? And then it's a very role specific decision that needs to be taken. uh, but yeah, like, we are, and it should not always be thought about that currently I want to change a role, so can I do it? I think I'll take it one step further to say that even within the organization, once you come in, there are opportunities to obviously go through internal mobilities, right? Pick up new skills. And I think you mentioned it in my introduction as well, that I have done many roles at PayU, so that option is available. uh, During the interview phase, it really depends on the role, and that's why I am hesitant in committing. But we are absolutely open in going through those profiles and then kind of deciding based on the requirements of that particular role.
Perfect. So we have a couple of other questions which are somewhat similar. One coming from a lady whose name is Krishna Priya, and the other from a lady whose name is Soumya. So if I look at Soumya's question, that's a little more specific. She says she has almost 8 years of experience in a particular technology, which I think is C. I think she meant to say C plus. This says C hash, and .NET. But she also has a break of 6 years. So I think, what she wants to know, A, she hasn't sort of asked in as many terms, but would that be an impediment? And would you be open to looking at a profile? Someone with 8, 9 years of experience and maybe 4, 5 years of break, is that an acceptable profile? Can she
It is,
apply?
because, like I said, we are completely cognizant of the fact that, and that's why we are doing this, right? It's
Right.
not just for women who have like 1 or 2 years of break. We understand that there are longer breaks as well, and probably the more suited route for them would be go through the 3 to 6 months program that I said, and then basically we make a decision. So we're open to the role. Just the path could be slightly different.
Okay, I think there are many questions around, what kind of an assessment process there is going to be. I don't expect you to spill all the beans, but if you could give some broad idea, because they seem to be, at least in terms of the process, may not be, what specific parameters or traits that you're looking at, but at least in terms of a process, if you are able to address, then I think that will in turn address many of those questions.
Yeah, I think in terms of the process, once you apply to the role, PayU and WIT together will be basically shortlisting, shortlisting the different profiles, and then there will be a round of interviews that will happen with the hiring managers and the HR managers. There could be additional steps, again depending on the technical requirements of the role, but broadly that's the process that we are going to follow. One level of shortlisting by looking at your resume, and then interview process.
Perfect. Let me digress for a minute and sort of take you back to PayU, the brand. Now, obviously, I think thanks to all that you've shared, I think that you have elaborated and held forth on several things in terms of the attractiveness of this program, the various, the flexibility that is sort of inbuilt into the program, the numerous learning opportunities that are available, right? including the fintech university, more than 5,000 courses, and so on and so forth. But now, if one has to get a little more hard nosed and say on the not so much on the employee side, but in terms of PayU, the brand, and what would differentiate PayU from their competitors, as in why should people join PayU as compared to some of your nearest competitors? What would some of those be from your perspective, given that now you've spent 5 years in this organization?
Now, that's a very interesting question. And I think I'll tell you a little bit about PayU first. So PayU, I think often it is perceived that PayU is just an India-based company. I first want to burst that myth. PayU is a company which has presence in almost 20 countries. We have offices. We have offices in Poland, Turkey, Singapore, across the world. We are market leaders in many of the emerging markets that we are present in, and we've been one of the oldest players also who have built these fintech rails and a high growth company, right? So I think in terms of the organization, we are placed in a segment which is growing really fast. Like I don't think I need to spend any time to talk about the growth opportunity of fintech itself, and being able to provide that global perspective. I think that is what differentiates PayU really. The way PayU was grown was PayU is grown by local leaders, and then they get the benefit of the global organization. So our solutions are very localized in order to serve the market that we are operating in, but at the same time, we do leverage the fact that we have operations across the world, so that we can attract customers and merchants to leverage that benefit, to expand their business. And PayU has been very active in innovating that way. So payments was one of the first things that we started with. Then we basically expanded into credit, and now Lazy Pay is a household name. So we started with B2B, we came into B2C. We're growing strong in B2C. And then the third pillar that I had mentioned, which is Webmo, which basically builds the infrastructure for payments. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to create like an ecosystem for financial services. Our vision is to break all the borders and ensure that people have that financial inclusion that's being talked about. That's a very important mission for us. And in order to achieve that mission, we truly believe that it's going to be the individuals who are going to actually execute the mission. We call people working in PayU the Payuniers. And our motto is that be you within PayU, which basically is to mean that you come in, you are empowered. We want you to feel empowered to express your entire self within the organization, and we are actively working towards it. And if I can take just 1 minute to talk about the DNI Council that we have built particularly, it's a council of individuals who are basically extremely passionate about the topic. These are individuals who already have a day job. Like for instance, I take care of FP&A. I have colleagues who are, say, country head of South Africa, who are tech head of a particular business unit, but they're just so passionate about the topic that they also spend their time on DNI. So I often say this, that at PayU, DNI is not a job; it's a passion for all of us. And I think that makes a lot of difference. We understand the challenges that individuals face. We also understand the limitations that an organization has and what can be done. And we are trying to then bring all of that together to ensure that every individual, not just women or any particular group, every individual can truly flourish, and PayU can flourish with it. Women being ensuring that the representation of women is increased in the organization is a very important pillar, and we've been working towards it. But I think these are few things that PayU offers. PayU offers the feel of a startup, the rush and the hustle of a startup, but at the same time, we're like more than 3,000 employees worldwide. We do have the stability of a global organization, the cultural benefits of a global organization. Sorry, that was
Wonderful.
answer.
No. I think that's absolutely wonderful. I was just trying to pay attention to all that you're saying, and because there were so many important points. I think for the benefit of our viewers, I'm going to paraphrase and repeat a few of them. So I think just to recount, I think amongst other things, points that were made is it's not an India-based organization. It's an organization that operates in more than 20 countries. There are at least three different distinct businesses in which the company operates. Those who are a part of the DNI Council, like Anuradha here is, that's a job that they do in addition to their roles. So she's the global FP&A head. There are others who could be country head of a country like South Africa. There could be others, who could be tech heads. So they do it because they passionately believe in this whole diversity and inclusion agenda. And I think the last important piece, which I think cannot be left out, is it has the energy of a startup, but at the same time it brings with it the stability and the security of an organization that's operating across diverse markets like Singapore, Latin America, Eastern Europe, and more than 20 countries. So thank you. I think that is a very, very comprehensive answer. If I'm not sure if that doesn't get women into PayU, what else can? But I think very well done. I think that's excellent. Certainly, it's motivated me, even though I'm not a woman. So
I'm so glad you paraphrased it because I felt like I was just flowing in passion. And I'm so glad you kind of summarized
no,
it.
it's important because I tend to do it at times because I think we owe it for our audience because these are things that are known to you, but sometimes when an audience is listening in, some of them register, some of them don't register. So at times it's just good to paraphrase. Coming back again to our audience because we shouldn't ever let them feel ignored. Questions around whether there would be openings in around cyber security or cloud sec domain. I guess it means cloud security. Sec probably means security. So
I'm sorry, I don't think I'll be able to answer that question. Just give it a day or two,
couple
and
of
you'll have
days.
it.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Perfect. Moving on, I think the question here is around, it's important enough, it's around the pay structure during the training, or would there be any pay during the training, or how is PayU thinking through the structure? Because if there is going to be training involved, then what are PayU's thoughts around that?
So there will definitely be a pay associated with that program as well. The details of it, I think once you get into the process, you'll get more details around it. But there is a pay during the 3 to 6 months program that I mentioned.
Okay, the next question is around what kind of minimum qualification. So obviously, I understand it that technology professionals, so that probably hopefully is clear. But if you're looking at functional roles, what would be the minimum qualification? So are you therefore looking at a minimum of an MBA in finance or chartered accountancy or just what?
So again, sorry, but this is a very role specific question. So I think one generic answer that we can give is some relevant experience and a few years of experience is what we're looking for, not necessarily a completely fresher kind of a setup, because like I said, the essence of the program is for women who have had a corporate career but are coming back. So few years of an experience is kind of a must, and some relevance to the role that they're applying for. But apart from that, whether it's an MBA requirement, whether it's an what kind of an engineering degree requirement, that purely depends on the role that you're applying for.
Okay, we have another question that's here, and while the entire question is perhaps not 100% clear to me, but nonetheless I will say it. Here it talks about it's also about pay structure during training, but more importantly, would recruitment follow based on the performance during the training program?
Sorry, can you repeat that again?
So what they're saying is, is recruitment, I mean, obviously recruitment would be dependent on there being the role and the suitability for the role, but they're saying performance during the training program while they are undergoing the training, how they perform during that, and any assessments that might happen around that period, to what extent would that be a driver of a decision on whether to hire or not to hire as far as PayU is concerned?
I'm sorry, I don't think I'm able to fully grasp the question. But obviously, the performance during the training is very important because that is what is going to help us make the final decision, right? It's like a recruitment process itself. So yeah, but I'm not sure I'm fully understanding the question.
No problems. Positive strokes coming your way, Anuradha. There is someone called Pooja Smriti who says, very nice explanation on the question on product managers. So
Ah,
thank you for that. And I'm glad I asked that question as well. Um, okay, going forward, this one, I guess I don't not sure whether we can give a definitive answer, but someone with 17 years of experience across a bunch of things, would such a person also be okay for such a person to apply?
yes, definitely yes. Please look at your role fitment and how much of years of experience, but no reason to say no. Like it's absolutely we want enough. Like one of the goals that we have at PayU is to basically increase the representation of women at senior leadership positions. So the answer is a yes.
Okay, this is a slightly technical question, and therefore I'm going to ask it in the manner that it's asked. It says, as PayU is a payment company and is PCI DSS compliant, are there openings for governance, risk, and compliance, or cybersecurity or audit? Now, again, you wouldn't know whether the openings are there or not, but you know, are there, does PayU operate in these spaces, which is governance, risk, compliance, and cybersecurity audit?
Yeah, like we definitely have these functions. I wish I had a list of roles that are opened. The departments are of course there. Whether the roles, yeah, whether there are openings in these departments, I'm sorry, I don't have an answer to that at the moment.
That's fine, but at least you are confirming that these functions do sort of are
Yeah,
very much there.
it's very important for us because payments as a business, right? It deals with a lot of data. So cybersecurity, compliance, and absolute priority for us. So there is no way that we could operate without it.
All right, interesting question. It says, are we expected to sign any bond after
No,
the training?
no, there is no bond.
All right. Um, I think that sort of brings pretty much brings us almost to the end of the questions that I can see from the audience. So we'll sort of come back and look at, what else do you think you would want to share about this particular program, and about PayU in general, with which can, then help, our prospective viewers and prospective people who can apply to this particular opportunity. What additional thing do we want to say in conclusion?
I think before that, I got a message from my colleague that we do have roles in the cybersecurity domain.
Okay,
Uh, so I'm glad I was able to answer that question. And in
super.
general, if there are any roles that are not available at the moment, I would actually request and encourage everybody to still go ahead and apply, share your profiles with us, because even though right now we're doing it as a program, what we hope for is that people feel open to come and apply directly on the portal, also on our job portal, so that if there are any future openings we can always reach out. So I think yeah, that I just wanted to close the loop on that one.
Super. Any important, last words from your side, Anuradha? That's important because in the context of the program and in the context of the organization, are there anything that you wish to mention?
So I think just as a concluding remark, right? We are a growing organization. There is a lot to learn. and specifically from DNI, like I mentioned, it's a long journey. There is a lot for us to work upon, and I'm just hoping that we get a lot of individuals who are listening to us today who would love to join us through this journey so that we can all grow together. I cannot promise that it's all going to be perfect, but what I can promise is that we are going to try our level best to ensure that there is a smooth transition. We give the opportunity that they are looking for, and this becomes a long-term association.
Well, thank you so much for your time. We've been together now for about 55 minutes. Anuradha, I think that was an excellent session. I think there are enough and more, responses which you yourself can see, which complement you on the several answers that you've given. It's not only the answer on product. There are several others on which there's been compliments coming not just your way but also PayU's way, saying it's great initiative and it's a great thing that PayU is doing, because many a times even when they're looking at returnee women, they look at the number of years of gap and not in terms of their intent as well as their past experience. So thank you so much. I'm sure it's going to be a great sort of program going forward. So thank you for your time, and thank you to the audience for listening in patiently to both of us. Thanks very much.
Thanks a lot, Anirudh, and thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you very much. Bye now.